And I guess I'll do my opening now because that's already happened anyway. But welcome back. My name is Melanie Rice. I'm with Brownfield Ag News. I hope you all enjoyed our opening sessions and have had a chance to catch up with new friends or catch up with old friends and meet some new friends along the way. We have a lot of new faces in the room, which is really exciting. So we're glad everybody's here to join us. At last year's fall conference, we held a roundtable discussion with a few of the advertising heads in Minneapolis. It was greatly received, and the feedback from you all said you wanted to see that again. So we're going to be doing that here in St. Louis. If I could ask the panelists to join me on stage, and then I'll sit down so my shoes don't hurt my feet anymore. And we'll get our panel started. All right. So just going down through here, and I'll just do a quick name introduction, but I'm actually going to let them individually introduce themselves because they're going to do a much better job of it than I am. But we've got Melissa Galaska
Very good.
with Paradowski, Tina Vondahar with the Brighton Agency, Susan Neese with Osborne Bar Paramore. I'm going to get that wrong because of
OBP.
OBP, there we go. And Allison Berry with HLK. So let's give them all a big round of applause just for being here today. We really appreciate their time. And as we get started, I mean, really basic stuff, but could you guys introduce yourself, say what your title is at the agency, and then maybe what your real responsibilities are? Like, you know, because I realize sometimes titles can be deceiving. So you want to start?
Sure, I will. Melissa Galaska. I'm the Vice President of the Client Service Team at Paradowski. We're headquartered here in St. Louis, Missouri. We've got offices around the country and just opened up a new office in Cologne, Germany a couple weeks ago, so we're rapidly expanding. We are a marketing and digital agency who largely serves the agriculture sector, but have a pretty diverse client roster that I can tell you about maybe at the happy hour if you're interested. What I really do for my job, it's interesting because I don't have the C in my title like the other panelists do, but we don't have that at our agency. We just have, I think, a collective group of people who have come together under the spirit of creativity and innovation and digital technology to try to deliver great solutions for our clients. And we're really passionate about that. I'm proud to represent a team up here of Paradowski people. My title, Vice President of Client Service, is pretty accurate. I spend most of my days and weeks time with our clients, spent thinking about their goals and objectives, making sure they feel great about the product that Paradowski is delivering to them. But I understand the spirit of your question. What's my real job? And I think it's to be a clairvoyant. I am expected to predict the future, to read the tea leaves, to look at market trends, to understand what's coming at us, much of which is a little bit gray and fuzzy and ever-changing, and make decisions based on that for our agency. So that's what my real job is.
Very good. Tina?
Hi, I'm Tina Vondahar. I understand, well, first of all, these screens are great. When you pointed to the screen, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. We're looking at the same thing they're looking at. So Brighton, a lot of you hopefully will join us tonight. We're right around the corner, and we've been in business. We're getting ready to celebrate 30 years in business. We're, as many of you already know us, we're a full-service agency. We specialize in 3 industry verticals, one of which is obviously agriculture. That's our foundation. We've been in agriculture from our start. The other 2 are consumer goods, and specifically pet and baby. We do a lot in those markets. And then the third is healthcare and life sciences. So we have 3 business units, and they operate distinctly but share a lot across the industry groups. My title is, what does it say? President and CEO. I bought the agency from the original owner about 10 years or so ago. I did not come up from a marketing background. I actually have a computer science and math degree and spent most of my years in a consulting agency with Accenture. So our business model is more of, while we're a full service marketing and advertising agency, we're really about solving business problems. So we tend to be strategic business partners and get to business strategy, which then leads to execution plans and all of that. We're fortunate to have a bunch of our team on the the NAMA committee, and I'm sure you've come across a bunch of people that are active in giving their time, and we're huge fans of everything NAMA does, so we're excited to be a part of this. What do I do? Stay awake and worry and make sure that everything goes right. I think it's really to keep all the trains running. I get very involved in the client work because that's what I really enjoy. I've worked on a number of projects as the account lead on the ag side, and now I'm more heavy in pet and life science. But really it's to make sure that we hire amazing people and we offer amazing careers and we bring great solutions to earn our clients' business every day. So, to you.
Well, that's a lot to follow up on. I'm Susan Neese, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Osborne Barr Paramore. So many folks in this room are probably familiar with Osborne and Barr. Almost 3 years ago now, we also acquired Paramore, which is a digital marketing firm in Nashville. So that's where the OBP came from. So a lot of you will hear that new, kind of reference to our company, and that's what it stands for. But a lot like Paradowski, Osborne Barr Paramore traditionally was started 31 years ago with agriculture as its foundation. Joe Osborne and Steve Barr started the organization and have built the legacy on agriculture. But over the last probably 10 years, we've looked at other verticals as well, as to say, how do we strengthen and how do we tell the rural spirit story? So there's other opportunities within the rural spirit market, or the rural market. Agriculture, of course, is the huge component of that, but there are other businesses to serve there. And so we've found other verticals. Nashville, our Nashville office has a lot of tourism clients. We also have food production. So we're doing a lot of different types of work, but obviously our roots are cemented in ag and rural marketing. What would be my job? So I kind of grew up in kind of an HR umbrella, if you will. I started my career with Darcy Advertising, for those of you who've been around for a few years. And I was with them for 10 years. And so I had a big consumer opportunity to grow with that agency, which was phenomenal and really kind of helped me really get my feet embedded in marketing and advertising, my love of creative and my love of solutions, and looking at really the opportunity of what we create and what we build every day. And look at that, the messages that we create and just how powerful they can be, and really being proud of that in the end. There's nothing I like going, that's ours, we made that, we did that. It's kind of like, a kid when he comes home from kindergarten and wants to put his picture on the refrigerator. We just get to put ours on a television or a computer screen or a phone now. So I started and spent 10 years on the consumer side of things before coming over to Osborne Barr Paramore. I'm fortunate enough to have been with the agency now for 13 years. And so the evolution of our agency has been phenomenal over those 13 years, where we were before, where we are now. We've seen a lot of diversity and growth, and we're very proud of that. And we kind of really look at kind of our mantra is what's possible, not only for ourselves as an organization, but also especially for our clients. We too want to solve marketing problems. We want to be a partner with our clients in every step of the word. And so that's really what kind of makes me excited about what we do every day. So I kind of have the best job in the world most days, just from the standpoint of being able to see really from a very macro perspective what it is we're doing for clients, how we're doing it. There is the business end of it, right? You're managing the P&L, you're making sure we're profitable. Those things are important. But really it's just making sure that we're engaging in the most important component of our business, and it sounds like a cliche, and I apologize, but is our people. Because at the end of the day, what we create are ideas and solutions. We engage with consumers, we engage with businesses, we engage with one another, we engage with our clients. And that's not on a spreadsheet, and that's not about a process. It's about really relationships and really engaging and really kind of digging down. So that to me that's why I find my greatest joy. So I do a little bit of everything. I always kind of say, whatever falls out of the sky that doesn't make sense for somebody else to do, I kind of pick up that ball. But again, it's a privilege and an honor to do it. So it's been a great ride, and I'm here for a while. So.
Allison?
Awesome. Hey everybody, I am Allison Berry from HLK. So HLK is an agency located here in St. Louis. We are a creative and technology agency. We're not an ag agency. We have a large portion of our business is in the ag space, but we work in aviation and energy and consumer packaged goods, similar to the other people here on the stage, and I think that really helps us bring a strategic perspective to our clients to be able to look cross industry. A lot of different companies face similar challenges, and to be able to bring that strategic solutions forward and ideas to drive their business. So I've actually been at the agency, not the norm in this industry. I started as an intern at the time it was Hughes, and have been there the last 18 years. My title is Chief Operating Officer, which is probably pretty true to the role that I play there. I probably split half my time in direct account and client service work, leading some of the businesses that we work on, and then I spend the other half in agency operations. A lot of that is around recruitment. People are huge, hiring great talent and driving a great culture, because without our people, we really are nothing. That is our product. The ideas that our people are able to bring forward as solutions to our clients are key. We've had a lot of growth in the last probably 5 to 10 years. We're about 175 people, all based here. My real role, man, that's a hard one. I mean, I probably hit on what a lot of it is still. I spend a lot of time in client work. I grew up through account management and focus in the digital space, so I do spend a lot of my time in day-to-day actual client work. And the other is probably with people, hearing a voice across all departments and all levels to hear what's going on with our clients, hear what's going on with our culture, and how we can put place change in the agency to continue to drive that forward.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys again for being here. I'm sure, as many of you can imagine, in a space like St. Louis, there's a lot of opportunities for these 4 ladies and their agencies to be very collaborative with each other, but probably also times too where there's some competition involved. So we appreciate their candor today and the opportunity for them to get up on stage and kind of share with you guys too throughout this process. But that being said, agriculture is always changing. I think over the last 36 months, it's really changed a lot. And we can all agree with that. With that changing landscape, if you guys were reporting on that today, what would be your headline? I mean, what would be your headline for the marketplace? Tina, do you want to?
So we were fortunate to get some of these questions in advance, so we could think a little bit. So we're not coming up totally, and transparency is probably one of my biggest strengths or weaknesses, depending on what I say. But one of our core values, we have 4 core values at Brighton that we live by, and we have them on our walls, and we have, you'll see tonight actually when you're in the agency, jars where we try to see, as people are living the values, share the examples so we can make sure people are keeping them top of mind. And when I read this question, to me, one of our core values applies, and that's embrace change. You can't do anything about it. Don't get upset. Accept it. Figure out how you deal with it and keep moving on. So to me, it's embrace it. It's not bad. It's just change.
Yep. Very good. Susan?
I agree. I think the only thing constant is change, right? So regardless if it's the agriculture landscape or marketing, advertising, or agency life, everything is about to your point, embracing it, trying to anticipate the speed to which you can adapt, both internally as an agency and then the client can adapt, right? Because a lot of times, if we're planning out 12 or 18 months for a client or a campaign, sometimes the change is occurring when you're in the middle of that, And so part of that is being able to be nimble and flexible with our clients and be able to be solution oriented and anticipate what we can do now and what we want to do next time, next planning year. So I think that as we anticipate changes, it's really being a student and a steward of that, being really mindful, keeping abreast what is going on in the industry, what is coming down. I think somebody said, being a clairvoyant a little bit, we anticipate what are the markets going to do, how's that going to affect, all of those things is really kind of being an educator and a partner with our clients in that respect, because it is changing and it's always, I always call it, hills and valleys, right? And that's just, it's cyclical. And so I think it's really important for us to be able to be nimble and flexible as we adapt our business and our approach to solving our clients' problems. So that, I think that just being able to be somewhat flexible is really, really critical.
Alice, go.
So the angle that I took when I thought about this was specific to agriculture. So a headline would be something like, consolidation is great for businesses, but is it good for farmers, or what's the value to farmers? So at the end of the day, for these companies that continue to consolidate and bring more product offerings, they have to deliver value to their customers. If they're not able to deliver value, then it's not going to work. So that's the approach that I would take, interviewing different ag executives to talk about what is the value from the consolidation or mergers or acquisitions and the change that they're experiencing. What's the value that they're going to deliver to their customers from that?
I thought about it a little bit differently. The two words that come to mind are contraction and expansion. I think on one hand, contraction for sure, you've got two companies becoming one in a lot of cases. DuPont and Bayer and Land O'Lakes has done some activity, of course. So for those of us who are advertising agency folks and marketers, there's then more limited clients or limited positions. But the upside of that, what we're also seeing, and this is not just true in agriculture, we've seen it in other industries, is the expansion. So I think in 2019, $17 billion was spent in ag tech startups. That's the biggest number in the category history. It will continue. So as we're seeing contraction with some of the larger client groups and perhaps some of the mega players in the agriculture space, we're seeing a huge number of new client potential. So if you're in Marcoms or if you're at an agency, you're seeing some of these executives and emerging leaders at a lot of the big companies now going off and starting some of their new ventures and bringing new ideas into the market. So it's a pretty interesting time of change, absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's hysterical you're talking about 12 to 18 month plans. I haven't lived those in a while. It's amazing. But the idea of change is absolutely right, but also expansion in the agriculture sector, which should be exciting for everybody in the room.
With that change in the landscape overall, have the communications and marketing needs of those clients been changing as rapidly? Susan?
Oh, absolutely. I think as they connect with consumers, as you try to reach everybody, you have such a small window of time to connect. And I think as we adapt and we kind of look at those opportunities, I think that the way that we approach that connection is always constantly changing. I think that, and we talk about new technology, and you talk about the digital platform and data and all of those things that have come into the forefront of the industries that we serve. Many times, it's the train is moving so fast, we're trying to catch up with it while we're running parallel paths. So I think that it's, the continuity, and again, that partnership is critical as we kind of establish and we respond to the needs of our clients and their clients.
Yeah, and specific to marketing communications, when you think about the change in the industry, I think what's really it actually becomes more complex. While there might be less players, there's a lot of complexity with it. I think what companies have to do is focus on true diversification, as well as having what is your brand purpose. That's both within the portfolio, so as companies have more and more products, they need to understand what's the role that the different products play, as well as against competition. Having a true brand purpose that is different and unique for your brand is going to be absolutely crucial for success at this time. And then be able to live that out, so we can say something in marketing and our messages and put it out as our headline, but then truly be able to live that and allow your customers to experience what that thing is that you're hanging your hat on, I think is going to be crucial.
So new expectations from our clients in Marcoms? That was the question.
Or how have their needs changed maybe over?
Yeah. Greatly. I think, there's just, and it's an and, not an or. I don't think we're trading from we used to do this, and so now we're no longer doing this, and now we're doing that. Now there's just an and this, and this, and, so increased need for grower customer communications, different kinds of communications in that space. They have appropriately a lot of questions about how all this is going to work and what does that mean for me at my farm, at my farm gate. Employee communications have taken on a new role, especially for some of these mega mergers and acquisitions. What kind of company are we now? What do we stand for? So I think agencies like ours, certainly Paradowski, are playing an increased and a different role at the table as part consultant, part change agent and change manager, part creative solutions provider, helping them navigate the waters of what's ahead of them. And oh, by the way, you know, the digital marketing landscape is evolving faster than even these companies are acquiring each other and merging together. So it's a convergence of a lot of things happening, and you just have to, you know, have that seat at the table to help guide the conversations and help your clients understand some of the trends affecting their decisions and offer hopefully braver and bolder solutions than they did last year. And that's what we keep pushing our clients to do at Paradowski.
And I think everybody's hit on most of it. The only things the 2 points that I would add to make sure, and it's probably stating the obvious, is now more than ever, budgets get cut. We need to do more with every dollar. So it's not as simple as take last year's plan and do it again this year or reapply it. It's always budgets were cut, but we want to reach more people. If you go in with that, okay, so that means you have to be nimble, you have to think, you can't just reapply. It's not a cookie cutter approach. So I think there's this, and there's, I think because digital has moved everything into new spaces and new conversations, there's this idea, well, you should be able to do it digitally cheaper and faster. And that's not the case. You have to work harder to show up in those spaces, and you have to use data, and you have to get into areas that maybe you didn't have to do 5, 10, 15 years ago. So that's the only thing I think I would build on.
So in your specific agricultural careers, your time within agriculture, you know, what do you guys feel has been the most significant change to date? And so, Allison, I'll let you.
Yeah, I mean, I probably have to say data, the power that what data can do for pulling out human insights to hang an idea on, or using data from last year to influence the recommendations. I mean, to what Tina said, you can't just do the same thing year after year. We have the power of data to tell us how things are performing and what should that plan be moving forward. Having data to be nimble and be agile and optimize in real time. Being able to use data to build segments of your customers. I mean, not big at a persona level, but down to a personalization at an individual level. The power that has today compared to where that was a couple years ago, I mean, it's changing so rapidly and will only continue to drive us forward.
I think the biggest trend I've seen, and I've been I spent about the last decade highly focused on agriculture, would be, if I think about the upstream, the value chain of agriculture, think upstream, the seed manufacturers, crop protection, you know, equipment manufacturers, processors. It's this acknowledgement and embracing of needing to reach society with our messages about why modern agriculture is a powerful industry, why science and innovation has to be present within our industry, and why it's driving great progress for the planet and for the world. So I think, you know, when I started in this business, I can only speak for the products and brands we worked for, but it was a lot about producing more and more and more and more and more food, more to feed a growing world, more people. And all of that is still true, but I think there's a new twist on things. It's a bit more sophisticated. I think some of the bigger brands in the space are adopting their responsibility in improved ways. Farmers are getting into the game. You know, we heard Neil from the NCGA talk today about corn growers' representation in this dialogue. You know, I think there's a lot of work still to be done, but it's moved beyond just a B2B industry where seed and crop protection suppliers are speaking to their customers, but embracing an ownership of the dialogue we need to have with consumers about all of this, because the technology and the innovation that's going to be born out of some of these mega mergers and startups and ag doesn't really matter if society isn't going to be receptive to the new technologies. So we have found a personal interest, I think, at Paradowski in helping share those stories and improving this dialogue for our clients, and I think that's the single biggest change I've seen.
It's hard when you don't go first, because when people take your answer, you're like, yeah, data, yeah. But so I want to take one other thing that I would touch on that I think is a challenge today that continues to grow. And I've been fortunate to start to travel more globally. And I also, conversely, work on a number of brands in the natural sector. And I think now more than ever, the social push towards organic, the social push towards we don't want any pesticides, and fighting the good fight to make sure we're feeding everyone and how you have to go about feeding everyone and the safety of products in the agriculture space. I don't know how many arguments I get into and I just have to stop because there's a lot of misinformation on how great the agriculture industry can be and what good they can do when you have a lot of the social push towards the organic conversations. And so I think that's a fight that takes us off of what we're trying to do when we have to divert and get into conversations that can be a distraction because it's not necessarily fact-based. There's a lot of emotional conversation in the space. So I think that's another angle that is a change today.
I agree with you, Tina. It's like, yes, what they said. But I think technology, again, where the consumer is actually getting their messages is one thing that, with the data and where we're meeting the consumer where they're at. What's that cross point, right? That's that crossroads. But one of the things that we've been pretty astute at over the last 2 years is really looking at kind of brand loyalty. We've all heard that for many years, and I think, growing up, we were a Pepsi or a Coke kid, right? We knew we were a Ford or Chevy family. We were all of those things. And with the mergers, the acquisitions, and even as it pertains to agriculture, many of, growing up, many families were, Pioneer or Monsanto, right? There's a fine line there. And I think that what we've done in our studies with our Farmers of Tomorrow and just some of our proprietary data that we've at Osborne Bar Paramore we've started to gather is really that's meaning less to the next generation, right? And with the mergers and acquisitions and these companies coming together, who is the company that I grew up supposed to be loyal to? I don't even know who that is anymore, right? So there's an identity crisis a little bit within the organizations that we serve and in the industry that we serve. And so what we're trying to do is getting to that Gen Z component too, to kind of help our clients really look forward. We talked about being that clairvoyant. How do you go out and say, okay, this is important now to your customers and your consumers, but what about in 10, 15 years from now? Farmers are decreasing, right? They're not looking at this as an opportunity for career choices and things to that nature. So how do we recreate an opportunity and a path for them and an understanding for them? And how do we connect our clients with that, that market segmentation? So I think it's all of those things coming together, but being mindful again of who we're talking to now is not who we're going to be. Our clients aren't going to be talking to in 10 and 15 years from now. And that's sometimes a hard thing to do because you have goals and objectives to obviously hit now, but you also have to be looking at what's in the future. And so we look at the data, we look at the technology, but we also want to be innovators on that data collection as well. So I think that's an area where I see a lot of change over the last 5 years.
Very good. I think we're going to shift gears a little bit here and talk a little bit more about operationals and work, kind of working within how you guys work within your agency, but I think it relates back to any company, and specifically, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z. I don't know what the next one is. I'm sure it's important, but there's been a lot of conversation, it seems like, about how companies now are incorporating all these different generational groups together into one company. And so how much of a challenge has that been for you all to figure out ways to incorporate those teams together, those different age groups together on the teams? And then how do you anticipate that to change further in the next 5 years?
I'll jump in with, so our agency is a member of a global network of agencies called ICOM. And there was a conference where, and generally when you get into these conferences, and I'm going to mess it up, let's say the Gen X that group or the baby boomers all start off by saying, oh, those millennials. And there was this one woman who I adored her. She was from Mexico, and I remember her standing up and saying, you know what, I've had it. The millennials are here. Drop it. Let's move on. Can we get beyond the conversation? And it was great because it kind of stopped everybody in their tracks. And there's an element of me when I hear these questions where I think, yeah, there's different generations. There have always been different generations. When the baby boomers were sitting at the table and they were new, the generation before them had issues with them. So I think we will always have differences based on how we were raised and our mindset. So, and that's good. It's a form of diversity to have a 65-year-old man who probably lived in a world where his wife was home cooking for him and to have the generations now where that 40-year-old man is going home to his partner and they may have adopted kids and they have different views, and that's good. We need diversity of thought, diversity of how they use computers and technology, diversity of where they're getting their information, because that's the way farmers are, that's the way consumers are, and it's all healthy to have. I would get nervous sitting at a table that was all one generation or all one ethnic background or all one socioeconomic. That's not good. That's not the real world. So to me, there's an element, put whatever label you want different ideas at the table.
Yeah, I mean, I'd add, I think especially in the agency environment, I mean, there are so few people that I know their age or age differences. Great ideas really can come from anybody, so I don't feel like we feel a lot of pressure from any age differences. I do think what's important is, and we push a lot of our managers, as we are expected to understand our clients' audiences, we really need our managers to understand their people. They need to understand, how best to communicate with them, what motivates them, and not that that has anything necessarily to do with age, but that helps close anything that could be a difference based on age. If you truly understand the people that you are managing, and you know how to best work with them, you're gonna get the best thinking and the best ideas from them.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Allison, that at our agency, our management team hasn't sat around and had a discussion about the differences between our generational gaps and how to navigate that. That just isn't really a topic, in part because our culture organically embraces diversity and ideas come from everywhere. I support all of that. I think we also, at our shop, we set up an environment where we can cross-collaborate, cross-pollinate, learn from each other. So it's very expected that maybe a younger generation that's coming in a year or two out of school that knows new techniques and new softwares and has new ideas is sitting at the table across from vice presidents and directors and people who might have been in the business for 20 years. And that's part of a cross-collaborative team that's expected to solve the client's problems. So it's important that the, younger generation feel like they're in an environment where they can share and use their voice and bring their ideas to the table. And equally, that they're as open to hearing about, some of us agency veterans who have been doing this for 20 years. We have a few kernels to share about, navigating tough problems or dealing with tough assignments or working on a shoestring budget. And I think it's great if you've got an environment where sharing and learning about that stuff is open and expected. And I think that results in far, far better solutions for our clients. We hear that from them, so I agree with that.
Just real quick, one of the things that one of our clients that I work with that I learned from them that I thought was brilliant, and I would recommend anybody in the room take this back as a technique if you're not already doing this. But whenever there's a meeting and you have the different age groups, you have your entry-level person all the way up to the VP, the most senior person in the room would always start and go through and make sure the youngest person in the room spoke first to give their opinion, because generally if the senior person speaks first, it stops or everybody piles on and agrees. But if, as a policy, you always start, and if I have an intern, account manager, and a senior account manager in the room, I'll start with the intern and say, tell me what you think of this. Get them to be comfortable talking among the senior people, and then go up the ladder until you get to the most senior person, and at that point, of course, you're gonna take their opinion because they're probably the ones paying the bill. But they've trained, without intentionally doing it, they've trained those younger people to share and be comfortable speaking up in a room. So I've always taken that as something I learned from a very large Fortune 500 company as a way to run a meeting.
I think that it's really important about diversity and inclusion for any organization is more paramount than probably it's ever been, and I think that's a good thing. When I look at being in advertising for a little while, I look around and really this has always been an opportunity for us to be better at diversity and inclusion, and that goes beyond age. And so I think for any organization, whether you're the client or you're an agency or you're a media company, I think mindfully being purposeful about what that means to your organization and to you individually. So I think that is really critical because it's not about to me doing service for something. Yes, everybody's going to come from a different generation, but people also are going to have different expectations, and they're going to your point, I think, going to be communicated to differently. They're going to have different wants and desires. And so I think if we're purposely mindful of that and we're working towards a goal as an organization, then we better meet those needs. And so I think that has really been a shift for me in 5 years, is really looking at that from both the corporate side and an agency side. Is it being purposely mindful about it, not just kind of saying, yeah, we do that, it's okay, this is how we include everybody. And I'm not saying that that's to minimize that, I'm just saying, but to be more profound about it, have a diversity and inclusion program, right? What does that mean? Who does that collaboratively in your agency or in your company that's running that? So really defining that and really making it part of your core values and who you are as an organization. That to me has been very different in the past 5 years, probably across any industry.
Well, I think one thing too that they say that, like starting a new job is like taking a drink from a fire hose. And I mean, I've been there, we've all been there, right? It doesn't matter if you're stepping into an entry level or a CEO position. Is there anything specific you guys do to make sure that when you onboard new employees, you're really getting them off on the right foot? Susan, do you want to, you kind of have a background there. Do you want to start us off on that?
So yeah, I mean, obviously there's so many different components to starting a new job, right? I mean, you look at company culture, you look at the actual discipline of the function that I'm going to walk into and the job that I'm actually going to do every day, the team that I'm going to work to, the client I'm going to work on, or clients, right? So there's so many different elements of any type of opportunity when you have onboarding. So we try to be really, again, purposeful in the fact that, up front, you kind of, you meet with your team, you have those downloads, it's constant, it's ongoing. So we have really like 6-month onboarding process to where it starts at the recruitment standpoint. Then obviously there's the offer, there's the hire, there's the training and development that we want to see over the, that 6 months periods out of the gate, and then going forward, you work with your manager on your annual plans as well. So I think it's really mindful that onboarding really never stops. It really just transitions into your continual learning and your development. So you might be onboarded into a new job, but as long as you've been there, you should be continually really challenging yourself to learn and looking at opportunities to learn, whether that's in your field, whether you're creative or you're in PR, or if it's just industry level, you know what I mean? So there's ongoing learning and development, I think, makes you a better professional overall.
I'm glad to hear you talk about recruitment, because I actually think onboarding does start with recruitment and taking the time to really understand your culture as an agency. We've identified a set of traits that we believe are who make people successful, and putting our recruitment through that lens allows us to bring people on who really are going to fit and onboard a lot smoother. It's so important, and we have a pretty complicated process that involves a lot of people, but it is absolutely crucial that we follow that process. It goes cross departments. Every new employee in our company meets with the leader of every department within their first month. They have an onboarding meeting with the set of partners, and then they obviously have within their discipline what happens. And then my other thing is, I think it's really important to onboard to HLK and understand HLK and how we work. What's most important is to throw them as deep as we can into clients. At the end of the day, everything needs to be through the lens of our clients. That's who we're serving. That's what we are pushing forward for the best idea and thinking to come from. So as quickly as we can get them immersed in the clients and understanding them and their audience, the better it's going to be.
We used to be terrible at onboarding. I will fully admit that. We were a small to mid-sized agency in town, and you said drink from a fire hose. We used to call it getting thrown in the deep end. These were all like catchy phrases to describe the difficulty of just throwing someone into a
And we would say sometimes there's water.
Sometimes you just fall flat on your face. There's some people in the audience here who get the credit, not me, for improving our onboarding process. So absolutely, many of the techniques you're talking about, you have to be quite organized to bring new employees on board and make them feel welcome. You need to be very clear about what the responsibilities are and where the teams are, and understand the client culture and how there's tools and processes for all that. But the new thing I would add to the dialogue here is it's also on the employee. So for a lot of you guys sitting in the audience who are new in this industry, or you're a few years in, it isn't just our job as agencies to help prepare you to come in, but you also have to put some skin in the game. It requires passion and energy and enthusiasm and real interest and effort to be good at this. And so it's a bit of a two-way street. So you can tell the folks who you interview and you recruit and you bring them in, and they are eager to jump into that deep end or drink from the fire hose, and they tend to be really successful in this business. And so I encourage you all to just consider multiple sides of this as you enter a new career in marketing or at an agency.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad I went last on this because I listened to you guys talk, and I wish we were that organized. There's a number of people sitting in this room that are laughing, going, "Yeah, we didn't have that." Sorry, right there. Sorry, right over there. We tend to be. Yes, you're all looking, and I see you. And again, I'm so sorry, but. What I will say, the one thing we do is learn. So I think we were self-aware. We were more where you were, where it's, hey, you're on, great, you got to go to a client meeting. Actually, no, that's not true. Hey, I know you don't start till Friday. There's a meeting a week before. Can you come? I'll make you whole. That really tended to be how we operated. But what we've done in the past couple years, so we were self-aware. But it was just hard to devote the time to onboard people and give them that training. So in the past couple years, I do think we have made some improvements, but it's actually something that I can't take the credit for. What I would say is we realized that there's a whole generation of really strong performers within our agency, and we pulled out and identified a year ago a group of people we call craftsmen, and I think there's like maybe 5 or 6 that we identified, and every year we're going to put new people together, and it's a team, a cross-function, cross-competency of highly engaged people that we gave them our SWOT, our assessment for the agency of where our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats were, that the leadership team identified, and we said, okay, there's lots of things you could do to help the agency be better. What do you think you can help make an impact on? And they came back and said onboarding, shock. And we said, great. And so they took it upon themselves to come up with the onboarding plan, which I think worked out really good because it came from not the leadership saying, here's what we think you need to know, but rather ground up where they said, you know what, when I started, man, it would have been nice if I would have done this. It would have been great if somebody would have told me this. And so they've helped to put a plan and process, and we're a year in, and it seems to be working really well. But again, it's a hard one because it takes time away when you want to be getting to the client and jump in and get stuff done to say, no, we've got to pause. And it is about our people as well. So it's work in progress for us, I would say.
That's definitely a balance, right? And you know, we want people, and a lot of the training and the opportunity is doing, right?
Yeah.
So the more quickly that you get immersed into the client, you're learning that, right? But at the same time, sometimes they're making, you know, we're trying to train them at the same time that they're doing. So it's definitely a balance.
So I do have more questions, obviously, for this group, but I also want to be able to engage our audience. So we have a microphone roaming around. Does anybody have any questions for the group while oh, we've got one already. Perfect. I'll save these for a little.
We might go to these quicker.
Hold on 1 second, sir. I'm sorry. I don't think that's on. Oh, we're good now. Try it now.
Hello?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Our morning speaker said that there's a rising cynicism or skepticism among consumers about advertising in general. And he said something I thought highly noteworthy, that in a lot of cases, enhancing trust is even more important than price and value. So my question for the panel is, as you're coaching your clients, what are some of the things you have to try to steer them away because they don't help the trust element versus the things you coach them towards to help build trust?
It's a great one. Allison, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny that. Your company's reputation is kind of the foundation of everything, and if that you don't have in place, I don't think you can push a marketing message that is about, you know, sell product or this price or that. So I do think that you need to make sure the foundation's there. The majority of our clients usually have that as a really strong foundation. So that's been probably a benefit to us. But if you are in a place where your reputation isn't there, your customers don't trust you, you've had a misstep, to make sure that is being addressed, because it will tarnish anything that you do within time.
I think the other thing is transparency.
Yeah.
Again, to piggyback on what you're saying, is companies make mistakes, people make mistakes, and it's kind of owning that when and how you can. That's the PR element of it. How do you manage that message, right? And how do you be authentic? How do you be real? Because trust, being authentic and real really equate to trust for most people. And so that's a really important measure. And again, it can be about product, it can be about benefit, it can be about price and all those things. Those three things don't elude trust, right? You're just telling me how much something costs and what I can do with it. So I think it really depends on, again, knowing your brand identity and being aware of it. I mean, sometimes it's kind of like we don't want to be self-aware about our brand or ourselves many times, but until we are, we really can't really crack that trust element until we're honest. We got to be honest. We almost have to do that brand audit, if you will, to say, where are we really tracking here? What does the public really think about our company? I mean, we may know, but do we really want to know? If you peel that onion back further. So I think really it's about authenticity. I think it's about being real with people, acknowledging it, and just trying to answer questions in the best manageable way that you can. So there's going to be things that you're never going to make right with everybody in the world, and that's just going to be, it's part of business. But I think if you can, and how you center and how you create that message is really, really critical.
I think values and motivations are 3 times more likely to sell a product than your claims or your competency or your efficacy. But try telling that to a boardroom full of men and women who are science-based, analytical, business-minded people who make decisions based on facts and numbers. So it's become much more of a balance of kind of the soft game and the hard figures here to help our industry better understand how to communicate. It's largely scientific-minded, science-driven people who make up our industry, and there's great value in that. But it's important to really bridge the gap between that and we're normal people, and people who, I would argue most people in this room probably have an 8th or 9th grade science education level or thereabouts. Most people don't have PhDs in plant science, so it's important for us to kind of meet our audiences where they are. Some of the most effective techniques we've found is really just bringing samples and examples into the room for some of these executives at the highest levels who they need to see and feel it a little bit themselves and see comparisons and contrasts, and that helps us move the dialogue further in the direction for improved communications. And we get energized by making progress in the right direction. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think the other thing of guiding executives to understand is what that's going to do for you, to get the value from a loyal customer who does trust you and who's willing to talk about you, what that's going to do for you that's going to outpay any advertisement that you're going to buy. And so understanding that end game and be able to take it to that valuable impression that you're going to get from somebody talking in a positive light for you, it's huge.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is trust is one of those things that has to be earned. I can say whatever I want until I live it and show you, and you believe in it, that's when you get it. And you don't realize how much you need trust until you need trust. So, for instance, we worked on a pet food brand that had trusted followers, and after the first recall, they gave them a second pass. So it was the time of crisis that you realized what the value of trust really was, so that when they said, we're going to fix this, so they hung with them through the recalls. When they sold out to a larger corporation, that's when their customers bailed because they broke that trust, and you can't get it back. Those brands don't exist anymore, and it was the negative side of the trust coin. So it's one of those things that having trust may not show up on the bottom line where you can say, oh, we increased our sales 10% because of trust. It's not like that. But when it goes away, you see it. And it's sure easier to sleep at night when you have that trust and you know you're doing right. So you feel good about what you're doing too.
Very good. Other questions? Yes, you've got one. Oh, just right behind you. Perfect.
It seems like diversity, like thinking about internally at the workforce, diversity inclusion is sort of the buzz phrase of the last year or two. But diversity doesn't last very long if you don't have an inclusive workplace. And so I wondered if you could talk about what you try to do to create a more inclusive workplace, what type of cultures you try to adopt and practices you try to employ in your own agencies to to create that very inclusive, welcoming type of workplace that will help keep those diverse candidates working with you and wanting to work with you?
I think that's a really tough one, because diversity comes in so many forms. It's no longer just age or color or it's ideas, it's everything else. So going back to what I said about our Craftsman program, I continue to believe it can't come top down. And so we encourage diversity through, as you join, if you have things you're passionate about, if there's causes you support, bring them forward. Use that as an opportunity. Let us learn from you. Again, that's why it's important that you have a mix of diverse people, thinkers at the table, because hopefully you're exposing people to new ideas. It could be political affiliations, who knows, causes that you support. Encouraging everybody to share in a safe environment and bring their passions, their ideas forward to hopefully for sure accept and include, but maybe change opinions or expose people to new ideas. So we do it more from a ground up and encouraging people to bring forward and start their own clubs, their own conversations to do that. I also think it's something you can't force. You can't say, oh, we're having a diversity inclusion, everybody has to go. It has to be embraced because you are hiring people that really believe in that as your purpose. So
I think it's a great question, and I think a lot of people trip over the diversity and inclusion buzzword, to your point, right? What does that mean? What am I supposed to do with that? What are we supposed to do that as an organization? Is this a checklist? Is this like affirmative action? Is this the EEOC thing? Is this? Is it legal? Is it not? Am I in compliance? Am I not? So it starts to kind of morph into many different aspects. So the short answer to me is, it is being mindful and purposeful again, and I use that word by design, of really how we're approaching our business. And it starts at recruitment, right? And it starts with our core values. It starts with, it's not a one-off, like you said, it's not an event that you check and that was a diversity and inclusion event and that was here. It's about how we show up every day, right? And when we're recruiting, are we throwing that net wide to get the most diverse and different types of candidates that we can? We hope we are. Again, but this industry in itself is not very diverse, right? It's just not. I mean, the statistics prove that. That being said, we can't use that as an excuse. So I think it's, where do we make those opportunities available? If somebody, to your point, wants to bring up hey, it's an opportunity to learn more about a certain holiday that maybe that's affiliated with maybe a non-traditional religion, that's great, There's different opportunities within that diversity and inclusion that I think it's just bringing new ideas. I think, to me, that's a big word, or probably a big, basically, description of really just being open to different ideas, right? And not expecting everybody to walk like me, to talk like me, to look like me, to think like me. And when we start, that's what inclusion means, right? And so I don't think but I think where companies are really struggling now, part of it is because when we go, there are clients and RFPs that ask for our diversity and inclusion program, right? They're asking, what are we doing under that umbrella? So it's also being a good, it's making us a good community involvement, and it's making our organizations better. So there's business avenues and reasonings for it, but at the end of the day, it's us being better as people, as human beings. And so to me, is it a buzzword? It's a buzz term, but also to me, it's an opportunity to show up differently and to be better. And so to me, I don't look at it as a buzzword as much as I look at it as an opportunity.
Yeah, and where I was going to go was to recruitment. We put an emphasis on diversity from a recruitment angle, because when you're in the environment there is a diverse set of people that are all bringing ideas forward, it kind of can go out the window a little bit because they're all there on an equal playing field, but that's key. They have to be on an equal playing field, that they're there. So we started with recruitment, but it can become a forced thing, that it's a checklist, and it's not real when it's that. And so how can you just make it be a part of who you are as a company? And so we start probably with recruitment as the angle that I would take.
Very good. I have a question over here. Oh, she's over there, sorry.
Hi, my name is Laura. I work for a small fertilizer company, and one thing I've thought about is like how to utilize an agency. So to kind of put yourself in a client's shoes, as you've been there a long time in your industry, if you were the client, what would be some things you would be sure to do or avoid to make your money go the farthest? Or in other words, like not waste money per se.
That's funny. That's almost one of that question I had. Melissa, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question, because we don't get the chance often to give our clients advice on what they should do. So that's cool. I think that you cannot short sell the initial briefing and discovery and conversations that need to happen as you initiate a project. I think it's I've worked with a number of clients who think, okay, I've hired the agency, here's the assignment, go, come back to me when you have it all figured out. And by the way, we have a shoestring budget or whatever. In this case, I think to be really successful with an agency-client relationship, it really does take some partnership and relationship building, sitting around the table and talking about your marketplace, your competitors, your target audience, research you might have, industry research that's available. And then, dare I say, deciding if you are asking the right question as a client. So I think you want an agency who's making sure the right questions are being asked. Is the problem we are trying to solve actually identified yet? Making sure that that's clear, and then giving the agency a little bit of runway and trust to come back to you with solutions to address that problem. So I think as agencies, we're often, we're squeezed on time and budgets, and you're supposed to be brilliant and it's due tomorrow, and that's okay. That is the business we're in, and when you know your clients really well, you can operate that way. But I would encourage you, if you're starting a new relationship especially, to spend that time together and really get to know one another. And a really good agency is probably going to put some skin in that game with you. They're probably going to invest some time and money of their own to get to know you and your business well, so they can do a great job. So that would be my perspective on that.
My first recommendation is, if you want the agency to be honest with you about what they can do, share as much information and be honest with them. If I have a client that comes to me and says, oh yeah, I wanna double my business, can you help me? Well, that's really wide. So as much as you can say, look, this is the business goal I'm trying to reach. I have this much money to do it in. Be realistic. Don't be afraid because you think, oh, they're not gonna work with me if I don't have this, or I'm not gonna be realistic, because then you're gonna get an honest answer of, you know what? With that information, here's some things you might want to think of. I may be honest and say, I don't think we can help you because I don't think to reach your business goal that you have the right amount. Or I may say, not that this has ever happened, oh, you don't need that much money. We can do it for half. But I think being realistic, and back to having a relationship, find somebody that you trust them and you like them, and you think if I put all my cards on the table, they're going to put their cards in, and as you said, skin in the game, because we want to solve the thing together that you're after. But the clients that come and aren't realistic with their spend and what they can accomplish for the spend, we may say, hey, for that spend, we can absolutely do some things, but you may want to lower your expectations a bit, and we may only get this. But it's a conversation where both sides come together with a clear vision on what they can do. And I think you'll have a gut feeling of, oh yeah, I think I can work with these people because I think they can help me. And don't be afraid 3 months in, 6 months in, if it's not working, to call it out and go, hey, I was hoping to get more, or I've had a change, or whatever. But I think having an equal conversation on both parties is the important piece.
I mean, if you're deciding agency or no agency, or I think you have to start to understand what gaps do you need filled as a company, and bring in an agency to help fill those gaps, and then look for an agency to push you. I mean, a lot of companies go to an agency to push their thinking. We live in kind of a world of passionate people. They're looking to solve problems and bring ideas forward. So you should look for an agency that's going to push you in that space and fill some gaps that you feel like you can't get done internally.
Well, and I would say there's also, to me, there's a difference with somebody like in your shoes of, do you need an agency or do you need a vendor or a freelancer? Because if you have the vision and your strategy of where you want to go, and you just need somebody to execute a thing, you probably wouldn't want to go to an agency like the ones sitting up here, because A, we probably are too expensive, B, we're probably more than you want to bite off, because if you've thought about it that much and you just want somebody to execute something, there are different ways to approach that. And in that first call to certain agencies, they'll probably tell you that. And they may even give you names of, you know what, call this person, because if all you're looking for, go here. So to your point, knowing what gaps you're wanting to fill will help you decide what kind of an agency or a vendor or a freelancer or a partner you need.
I think the other component to that is really looking at what are you trying to solve, right? So we talk about what questions asked, what gaps you're trying to fill. What does success look like for you if you hire an agency? So it's at the end of the assignment, whether it's a project, it's a campaign, whatever it may be, what will you go, yeah, this was a great experience. So sometimes it's going in, you don't know what you don't know, and that's okay, but then that's the point of the discovery meeting and really kind of, doing that analysis of filling in those gaps. But, starting with the objective, what are you trying to solve for, and then what will success look like at the end of the day? And then you can kind of build the plan in between from those two factors. And then if you can afford the plan.
I still have a question up here in the front with Lynn. She's coming, Lynn.
I'm Lynn Henderson with Agri-Marketing Magazine. When I started out in the business, and there's several of them my age here, we had two things in common. Agri-marketers had two things in common. Most of us were farm boys, and we're all graduates from land-grant universities. And most of us wanted to go back to farm, but didn't have the opportunity, so we got into a career as close as we could to it. That pool of those people has shrunk significantly. So I'm interested, how are you attracting talent to be on your ag accounts, and how do you get them into the ag accounts? Because the ag accounts weren't always thought of as being the most progressive or attractive or high profile, but those of us from my generation had a deep respect for the industry and were proud to be a part of it. So I'm just curious, what are you seeing with these employees and how are you getting them involved in ag?
Allison, you've talked quite a bit about recruitment. You want to start it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I experienced the opposite. I do think we can get people pretty motivated about ag. I mean, we've been lucky enough to be able to push with our clients and do some pretty new and innovative and pretty cool things. So we actually do have a staff of people that are pretty motivated about ag. If you really take the time to understand a lot of the stuff that Melissa was talking about and how deep the science goes and how progressive they are in technology, and there's so much, they're solving business challenges just like our other clients are. So we usually can get people pretty motivated about working on ag, and we have a lot of people that are pretty passionate about it. So through that recruitment process and to be able to talk about that and give that understanding, we actually don't really have a big challenge with getting motivation of working on ag.
We have a very extensive internship program as well. So each year we have anywhere between probably 15 and 20 interns, and they're in all of our offices, and we actually even have a full-time intern at Mississippi State right now too. So we do recruit from land-grant universities, of course, and then we go elsewhere. I mean, we've had people from Oregon State, we've had people from Cal Poly, we've had people from North Dakota, Florida State. I mean, so it's phenomenal because we started this probably about 13 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, and we reached out really to those ag-centric schools, if you will, because we were trying to attract those people that were doing ag journalism or business majors, or really just had a passion for agriculture and didn't really even understand that there was an opportunity in ag communications. You know, but some schools did a really great job in it, and some schools they were like, wow, this is wonderful. So we've had almost a little over almost 15 years of experience trying to really penetrate that market. But again, I find more too that we are really finding people from other areas too that are excited about agriculture, because it comes back to the emotions and the feelings and how do you connect with people, because people are caring about where their food comes from, and people are caring about, you know what I mean, like how are you going to sustain food production, and what does it mean organic, not organic. And there's really the students that we're seeing are really more mindful of that, and this last class of interns, I literally would have hired every single one of them, but some of them had to go back to school, and I'm sure their parents wanted them to complete their degree. So, but they were so passionate, and they were so engaged, and they were so just delightful in their storytelling, right? So they grabbed a hold of it, and some had ag backgrounds and some didn't. So I love seeing that passion. Again, like I said, I would have hired every single one of them, and I don't say that every year, but this year I would have. So that's inspiring to me. Every time we have an intern class, I get inspired. I was like, I want to go back to school. I want to do this because they were just really so engaged. The interns that we do have, we had, I think last year we had, I think 18 intern spots. So how we match that up is a director or a manager has to say, we're going to sponsor an intern. So it's not just, we're gonna throw 20 interns out there. Somebody's gotta say, I'm gonna basically sponsor this intern, I'm gonna be their mentor, they're gonna work on client teams, all of those things. So if that's why the number fluctuates each year. So there's gotta be a commitment from somebody internally in the team. Then we recruit. Last year, like I said, we had 18 interns. We had over 600 applications for those 18 spots. So we are very, very proud of that. Now, was every one of them a home run? No, but the numbers themselves were outstanding. And then we probably hire a good 15 to 20% that are already graduated students. So, or maybe they have 1 or 2 classes they can take online. So we are very, passionate about just finding and growing talent wherever that is. And so again, it's not really been a problem working on agriculture. It is very helpful though if somebody comes from an ag background, if they're on an ag client, because they know the vernacular, they understand the science behind it, or they understand the motivations of the consumers that they're talking to, right? So it's not learning that. I'm a firm believer that anybody can learn a product, anybody can learn a brand, but if you have a leg up and you've already started, right? If I grew up on a farm or my grandparents still farm, you got a head start there, right? So I think it's really just making those connections and really being passionate and showing them the path, what's possible. We've had really wonderful success. I'm very proud of the internship program that we have. I don't run it. I have a great team that does that, but I think one of our former interns is in the room today. So yeah, Allison, you said you were started as an intern, So I think it's just a phenomenal opportunity if, for companies to look at from talent.
I love your question. I think it just speaks to the humbleness of this industry and kind of the character and the emotion of it that I think all of us are attracted to in agriculture. The truth is that we don't get, when I get an applicant and when we get people who have a true farm background or an agriculture background, they're prioritized because it's really exciting to have some of those overlaps and they really get it. But the honest answer is there aren't enough of them to fill the talent pool that we need to serve the industry. The industry is underrepresented and underserved, I think, in communications and marketing generally. But that's a huge opportunity. I think we're all living that right now. We need to tell the stories of agriculture, both for our customers' sake and for the sake of society. But we need a diverse set of perspectives to do that. So we're always looking for a healthy mix of people who, I've got probably 25% of our staff who work on ag accounts, who come from an ag background, and then the rest are from various ancillary categories. Agri-finance is an interesting vertical. Nutrition and health is an interesting vertical that has overlap, but maybe they didn't grow up on a farm. And I think that's okay. I think that's great. And actually, I think it's great for the agriculture industry.
Do you need anything to add?
The only thing I would add is I think I have a very optimistic view of the people that want to work on it, and we're similar that we have a mix of people that came from farm and people that didn't. And I would venture to guess if you asked the people that moved to the ag team without growing up on a farm and said, hey, do you want to come over and work on this consumer client or on this healthcare client, they'd say, no, I want to stay in ag. Because I think once they're there, they get it. So you don't have to be born and raised in it to find an appreciation. And I know my own personal experience, I had nothing to do with agriculture other than a consumer of it until I worked on some accounts with BASF at the time. And I remember going home saying, the farmers, those are the people I want to work with. They're salt of the earth, they're real people. And when you go into a lot of other client accounts at the time, we were also doing some government work. Okay, so you tell me, who would you rather work with, a politician or a farmer? So I think it's the people and what you can do to help and to feel like you can help with the greater good and do something really good for feeding the world. You'd be surprised at how many people, once they get the chance, they may not know it, and once they get the chance, they're all in.
We probably have time for one more quick question from the audience if we've got one. Oh, everybody got shy all of a sudden.
Everybody wants the ice cream that didn't get the ice cream.
Or the reception.
Or the wine.
Or the reception.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Well, we're not wrapping up quite yet, so sorry, I don't get anybody too excited. As we start to wrap up, though, I have really one final question that I think is important. And, I think we'd be remiss today not to mention that, we've got an all-female panel. This wasn't by design. This was a completely organic situation. I think it's very cool, though, that we're in a very male-centric organization or industry anyway, when you think about it. Yet there's opportunities not only for males but yet females to excel and to be leaders within the organization. So I think that's great that we have that opportunity. That being said, I've been really lucky over my career that I've had a lot of great mentors, people that gave me a lot of really great advice along the way. Some are in this room today, which is also always very cool to be able to reconnect with those folks. What's the one best piece of career advice you guys have received along the way? And you can go into as much detail as you want, or maybe it's a piece of advice that you like to share with people as well. So I'll leave that fairly open there. But Melissa, you want to start?
Sure, definitely. I have had a lot of great mentors in my career, some of them female, some of them male. I don't think that's really been a common denominator. But a guy who ran a big agency in town here in St. Louis, probably the first couple years of my career, said, always try to be the second smartest person in the room. That's not he didn't invent that quote either, but I'll never forget the guy who told it to me because he was somebody I respected and liked a lot. And I think that just, my interpretation of that is you need to spend a lot of time listening and observing and hearing others and being a student of whatever it is that you're doing. Not be the first person to answer all the questions or the first person to have a comment to whatever's being presented. So I think it's good advice for those who are up and coming, because even if you have opinions, it's a careful balance. I think to be really good at this, you have to be a student, as I said, but have a perspective on the industry, on Marcom, on digital trends. You have to have an informed perspective, but wait your turn and don't feel like you have to shout that above everyone else. So that was the best advice I was given. I don't live it all the time, as my team will probably attest to.
But you remember it.
I remember it.
So, Tina?
Mine's pretty simple. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak.
That's good. Mine would probably be nothing is a tragedy if you learn something from it. So, that's in life and in work. So there's a lot of times in this business and in the work that we do, sometimes our clients aren't always happy with what we're doing, or there's miscommunications and things to that nature. And I think it's really important to kind of try to keep perspective. You know what I mean? The work that we do is very, very important. It's very important to our clients, but we also have to bring it back and how do we solve problems as much as we can with a level head, because when we start to unravel, things start to unravel further. So I always try to remind myself that, is this really a tragedy, or what can I learn from it?
I'd actually probably go back to something Tina said at the beginning, which is to embrace change. You have an opportunity to be a skeptic of change or see it as an opportunity. And I think those people that do see it as an opportunity usually go pretty far in their careers. There is so much change. We have change within our agency all the time. We have change from our clients all the time. We've talked about the industry changing. Marketing communications has changed. If you don't embrace that change and push yourself to learn more into that, I think those are the ones that do really succeed.
Very good. Any last thoughts, comments? Yeah, I'll kind of give you guys a little bit of the floor here. We have a few minutes left. Is there anything that you feel that, one thing you just really would love to share with the group here today about agriculture, about agri-marketing?
One of the things that Allison said just now, embrace change. And, some people said, how did you get to your role? And I'm like, it was a very convoluted path. But it is really taking that change as well as opportunities, because sometimes there are new balls that drop, or there are things that are come up that really is no one's job, right? You look around and it's like, whose job is that? And I think where my career path really took a turn really on more of a operational aspect is when there was stuff that just had to be done, right? So I was like, well, I'll do it. I'll figure it out, or I'll get, a consultant, or I'll, call somebody to help me. But really embrace those opportunities that are in front of you. Even if you're, a little bit timid and scared, grab the ball, you know what I mean? Take it, say, you know, I'll work on this with Allison, or I'll work on this with Tina, or we'll figure this out together. Because I think that's really that even when you're in a little bit of trepidation, that's when you have the ability to grow the most. You know, if you get comfortable and you know your craft and, oh, I know my job backwards and forwards, you're not growing. So really just take those opportunities, and sometimes they don't always smack you right in the face, but sometimes they do. But, you know, just look at those opportunities, and if somebody's looking around for help or assistance on something, raise your hand. You know, it's a great learning opportunity, and that's really a way to show initiative and, you know, to stand out and really make kind of a mark, if you will.
I'd say be brave. You know, I think that there's big companies in this room, and there's little tiny startups, little fertilizer companies, there's agencies, there's media people, and I think it's going to take all of us in this industry to do a little bit better this year and a little bit better next year to make this collective industry better. So go back to your offices and with your teams and be brave and confident in your ideas and the solutions that you bring forward, and hopefully we all get incrementally better for agriculture. So I think that's helped me in my career, and that would be my parting advice.
Very good. Any thoughts?
I think you've got some good one. The only other thing I guess that I would add is speak up. Everybody here has a voice. So when you're invited to a meeting, you're invited there because you should contribute. There's nothing that bothers me more if I invite people to meetings and they just sit and listen. If you're invited, you have something to share, so share it.
Yeah, the other thing, Melanie, you started with having some good mentors. I do think there's a lot of people you're gonna pass in your career and get to know. There's probably gonna be very few that really, really wanna invest in you in your career. And when you find one of those people, or some of those people, tap into them, they can help push you, you can learn from them, and they can help your career.
100%. Well, folks, let's give our panelists a big round of applause. Thank you. We know it's difficult to take time out of day-to-day and billable hours and those types of fun things.
Oh, I was going to build this.
Oh.
What's your Goss Center?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll send you over my number later, yeah. But no, we really do appreciate it. We know it's always a busy time. I don't think there's any downtime anymore in the agency or agri-marketing world. So again, thank you guys for being here. I'm going to close. I'll let you guys sit here for a second while I close. I'm sorry. But, you know, if you guys have additional questions, I know there's probably some out there that you didn't feel like comfortable asking in front of the group. You know, feel free to catch up with our panelists that are attending the reception here at our next Hustle with NAMA event, which will be the networking event at the Brighton Agency. I think there's some directions on how to get there. If you look on your table, there's a little card. So for those of you who may not know, oh my gosh, there's a map even up there. My goodness. I ordered that for everybody. No, there's instructions on how to get there. I'm sure if you guys meet towards the lobby, y'all can find your way there because it's not hard to find.
It's a left and a right.
Yes.
That's pretty much it.
And let's also, while we have a chance, please join me in thanking Tina and her agency for hosting us tonight. We really do appreciate that as well. So. And see you there.